The painting in the mirror. In the quiet suburban town of Hollowbrook, the Danielson family found themselves drawn to an intriguing estate sale at the old McAllister mansion. The aging structure stood as a relic of the past, its faded elegance whispering secrets from within. Ignoring the rumors of the mansion's haunting past, the Danielsons were enticed by the allure of history and possible bargains, unknowingly setting in motion a dark sequence of events that would forever alter their lives. Completely ignoring the town gossip of how the entire estate was cursed. The mansion itself was unlivable, but the items from within were all being sold off to pretty much the highest bidder. While at the estate sale, Kelly Danielson came across an antique mirror that she just had to have. It wasn't even priced at that good of a bargain, but after pleading with her husband Henry, Kelly was able to walk away with what she wanted, as usual. Also, while there, Henry had stumbled upon an antique painting of a Victorian-era woman who bore a striking resemblance to his wife, Kelly, and thought that it would make, if anything, a good conversation piece for their new place. As the Danielsons settled into their new home on the other side of town, Kelly decided that the foyer was the perfect place for their new mirror, and since both the painting and the mirror had come from the same place, Henry thought it best to hang the picture of his wife's Victorian doppelganger directly across from the mirror on the opposing wall. Days passed and a subtle unease began to settle over their lives. Strange noises echoed through the home at night, and cold drafts seemed to follow their every move. Kelly and Henry, the parents, brushed off the odd occurrences as nothing more than quirks of an old house. But as the days turned into weeks, the atmosphere within the home grew more sinister. The youngest child complained of seeing shadow people darting out of the corner of her eye. Furniture seemed to move out of place on its own, but the parents dismissed that as their oldest child playing pranks. However, an otherworldly chill gripped their souls. The parents found themselves plagued by restless nights, tormented by whispering voices that pierced the veil of sleep. Desperate for answers, Kelly delved deep into the history of the McAllister mansion. She uncovered tales of tragedy and sorrow, stories of a family consumed by darkness. Rumors spoke of a malevolent force that had taken hold of the estate, driving the original occupants to madness and despair almost 100 years ago. The haunting intensified, as if angered by the Danielsons' presence in the home, even though they were all the way across town from the McAllister mansion. The spirits that lurked within the home's shadowy corners seemed intent on punishing the Danielsons for removing the mirror and the painting from their former estate. The malevolence shifted its focus to the children, Serena and Jacob, their innocence the perfect canvas for the spirits' dark desires. Serena, the youngest, began experiencing vivid nightmares, ghastly visions that infiltrated her waking hours. She saw spectral figures lurking in the corners of her room, their cold, ethereal fingers grazing her skin. Night after night, she would awaken in terror, her screams piercing the stillness of the house. Jacob, the oldest, became withdrawn and unusually silent. His once playful nature turned somber, as if burdened by a weight he could not comprehend. The spirits whispered to him, coaxing him deeper into their clutches. Jacob's laughter, once a symphony of joy, now sounded hollow and haunting. Kelly and Henry could no longer deny the existence of the supernatural force that gripped their family. They sought help from paranormal investigators, desperate for a way to free their family from the clutches of the malevolent spirits. But every attempt to banish the haunting met with failure. The spirits proved resilient, their grip unyielding. As the Danielsons teetered on the brink of despair, an unexpected ally emerged. An elderly neighbor, Mrs. Hawthorne, had overheard the young parents' complaints of all the supernatural occurrences that were happening in their home, and when she approached them one evening and it was explained to her about how the home had no history of hauntings but that they had bought some items from the McAllister estate sale, the old woman revealed herself as a practitioner of ancient rituals and a guardian of forgotten knowledge. Armed with her guidance and a newfound determination, the family prepared for a final confrontation with the spirits that held them captive. On the eve of their chosen battle, the Danielsons gathered within the heart of the home, clutching talismans of protection and chanting incantations to ward off the darkness. The air crackled with tension as the spirits fought back, their rage manifesting in flickering lights and rattling windows. The painting was the first item to be knocked off the wall, followed by the mirror, which shattered into 1,000 pieces. The battle raged through the night, the living and the dead locked in a desperate struggle for dominion. At one point, a dark, shadowy figure was seen emerging from the shattered glass, and it lunged toward the family, grappling their youngest, Serena, and throwing her against a wall. Kelly went after her daughter but was stopped by her son Jacob, whose eyes were blackened, and yelled to her in a dark, guttural manner, "No, Kelly, the girl and boy belong to us now." The woman tried to break free from her son's clutches, but was thrown down to the ground. Henry wanted to snatch his son up for throwing his mother to the ground but was frozen and couldn't move a muscle. Mrs. Hawthorne stood with her eyes closed, as if nothing was happening. Suddenly, Jacob began to levitate, the blackness gone from his eyes, and in a momentary plea of innocence he shouted, "Mom, Dad, what's happening to me?" The boy's head was snapped back as blood spewed out of his mouth, his parents screaming in despair for what was happening to their son. The lights in the house flickered, till everything went black. When Kelly and Henry awoke the following morning, their house was in shambles, both their children were dead, and Mrs. Hawthorne was nowhere to be found. As the couple caressed their children's corpses, a loud pounding sound came from the front door, and before they could get up to open it, the door was kicked in, and policemen charged in. Kelly and Jacob were snatched from their children's lifeless bodies, and placed into handcuffs for the double homicide of their own children. The parents pleaded that they had nothing to do with it, but as they were walked outside of the home to the police units, there stood Mrs. Hawthorne, pointing at the two of them, telling the police how she had heard and seen from her home next door the two parents murdering their children in a violent rage. As the parents were carted off to jail, and the children's corpses were carried off by the coroners, Mrs. Hawthorne entered the foyer of the home and picked up the mirror, which was no longer shattered, and the painting, which was a painting of her younger self 150 years ago.